Hey, Squeaks. Welcome back from your big vacation to California. Did you have fun? That's awesome. What was your favorite part? You really loved exploring the beach? Well, that would explain why you're still wearing that snorkel and towel. I'd love to hear more about your trip. Did you take any pictures? Maybe you could share them with us so we could see what you got to experience. Wow, that's a beautiful picture of the beach. Tell me about what it felt like when you first got there. Oh, wow. It sounds like you used a lot of your senses all at once. So you heard the ocean waves crashing on the beach and you smelled the sea air? Isn't it amazing how loud the waves are? You can even hear them before you see them sometimes. All of that water is so powerful, and there's nothing quite like the smell of the ocean. What else did you do? Oh, you felt the sand under your wheels as you were rolling along the beach? And it felt really soft. You know, the sand you saw at the beach comes from a lot of different places. And did you know that some of it comes from rocks being broken down into tiny pieces? You're right, Squeaks. Soft isn't the first word I think of when I think about rocks either. But a lot of sand is made of rock. Those crashing waves you heard when you first got to the beach break down rocks on the shore into smaller and smaller pieces. The waves make those pieces of rock smoother too. And since the sand doesn't have sharp edges, it feels soft. In fact, if you scoop up a handful of sand and look closely, you'll notice there are still some slightly bigger rock pieces in there. And what else do you see in that handful of sand? That's right, there are bits of shells in there too. Those come from creatures that live in the ocean, like clams and snails. The water helps break those shells into smaller and smaller pieces too. Squeak says he's been to other beaches that don't have soft sand. And you're right, there are a lot of different kinds of beaches. Some beaches don't have sand at all. Instead, they might have big rocks to climb on, or they might just be made of pebbles. But the beach you went to had soft sand. Did you build a sandcastle on the beach? That's great! Sandcastles are my favorite thing to build at the beach. What a great castle, Squeaks! You did a really nice job with all that soft sand. Aw, but the ocean waves eventually knocked it down? That's happened to me at the ocean before too. Sometimes a wave is so big that the water makes its way further up onto the sand than you think it will and knocks down all of your hard work. But then you get to build a new castle, so that's pretty fun, right? Well, besides it knocking down your castle, what did you think of the ocean water once you got to swim in it? It's a little bit different than water you might find in a lake or in the bathtub, right? You're right. The ocean can be very cold. Not only is it cold, the water is very salty too. That's why you can't drink ocean water. It's too salty for our bodies. Hey, did you know that salt comes from rock, Squeaks? Our planet is made up of lots of different kinds of rocks and minerals. Salt, like the kind you put on your food, is a mineral too, and we find it in lots of places all over the world. Rainwater breaks off tiny pieces of the rocks and minerals which wash into our rivers and streams. All rivers run into the ocean, so those tiny bits of rocks and minerals eventually make their way to the ocean, including salt that we can taste. And there are lots of rivers on our planet. Because there are so many rivers dumping salt into the ocean all at once, and since the ocean has been around a really long time, the ocean gets saltier the older it gets. Great question, Squeaks. River water doesn't taste salty because rivers are always moving. And rivers and lakes are always being refilled with fresh, unsalty water every time it rains or snows, which means less salt in the water. But when the river meets the ocean, it drops off all the salt it's carrying, and that's where the salt stays. But there's more than just salt in the ocean water. That's right. There are animals living in that water. So many different animals. Marine mammals like dolphins and whales, lots of fish, crabs, clams, the list goes on and on. There's so much ocean on our planet, and it's home to a lot of life. But there are also lots of teeny tiny animals and plants in the ocean, so small that you can't see them with just your eyes. You need help from a microscope. Squeaks. We have a friend who I know could tell us more about the tiny creatures in the ocean. Yes! Let's call up our friend Grady the tardigrade.
Well, howdy, partners. How y'all doing today?
Hi, Grady. We're doing great. Squeaks just got back from the beach, and we were hoping you could tell us more about the tiny plants and animals that live in the ocean.
Well, golly, I'd be happy to. These here varmints are known as plankton. Plankton are tiny plants and animals that live in the water. As you can see, there's a lot of them. In fact, if you scooped up a handful of ocean water, there would be millions of these little fellers in there. There might be more plankton in that water than there are humans living in a big city. But you can't see most of them with just your eyeballs. You need a microscope for that. A microscope is a special science tool that uses lenses you can look through to help you see things that are really small. Things like me and my plankton pals. And even though these critters are small, they're mighty important to our whole planet. Some of these plankton are plants, also called phytoplankton, which help make the oxygen that we all need to breathe, just like the plants on land. And some of these critters are animals, and they're also known as zooplankton. They eat the phytoplankton and are also food for bigger ocean creatures. Did you know that the blue whale, the largest animal on Earth, mostly eats tiny plankton called krill? They gulp down 16 tons of krill every day. 16 tons is as heavy as 4 elephants.
It's amazing that there's so much happening in the ocean that we can't see.
Yes, sirree. The world sure is cool like that. Well, partners, I need to get back to wrangling this here herd of zooplankton. It was great talking with y'all. Have a great day now, you hear?
Bye, Grady. Thanks for chatting with us. Wow, Squeaks. Did you have any idea all that was happening in the same water where you were playing? We really learned a lot about the beach today and how you can use all of your senses to experience it. Squeaks, I think I hear something. Oh, hi there. Squeaks and I were just sorting the seashells that Squeaks found during his trip to the beach. Where did they come from? Great question, Squeaks. They were probably washed ashore by waves. Yeah, waves. Not only are those waves fun to play in, they also bring all kinds of things from deeper in the ocean right up to the shore. The up and down motion we see in the water is called a wave. The top of the wave is called the crest, and the bottom is the trough. And one neat thing about them is that the water itself doesn't move forward with the wave. The water moves up and down as the wave travels through the water. Think about when you floated in the water. When the waves went past you, you bobbed up and down instead of just moving all the way back to the shore. Yeah, Squeaks, that's right. We can see waves in lakes and ponds too, not just in the ocean. Anytime there's a body of water and wind, you can have waves. Great question. There are a few different reasons that waves can happen, and one of them is around us anytime we go outside. Wind. As the wind passes over the water surface, the wind tugs on the water, creating waves. The size of the wave depends on the strength of the wind and how long it blows. So lots of wind can make really big waves. Most of the waves we see on the beach are caused by the wind. But can you guess something else that can make waves? I'll give you a hint. It's big and round, and we can see it at nighttime. It's the moon. I'll tell you how. The moon makes waves when its gravity pulls on Earth. Gravity is the force that pulls things together. It's everywhere. Let's all stand up and jump up as high as we can do safely. Ready? 1, 2, 3. When you jumped, you didn't just float away. you fell back down. That happened because Earth's gravity pulled you down. Everything on Earth is held down by gravity, including the ocean. The heavier something is, the more gravity it has, and planets are pretty heavy. That means Earth's gravity is tugging on the moon. But the moon has gravity too, and the moon's gravity is tugging right back. Our moon's gravity pulls on Earth as it orbits around us. It pulls on us, the land, the fort, and even the ocean. And even though it doesn't pull hard enough to move us or the ground, the water it pulls on does move. Which means that sometimes when you're at the beach, the moon is pulling the water closer to where you are on the shore, which is called high tide. You might notice that the beach isn't as big as usual at high tide. That's because the ocean is covering more of the beach. But if the moon is pulling the water at a different place on the planet, the water will move away from where you are on the beach. That's called low tide. And low tide can mean that all sorts of things that are usually underwater are visible. Yeah, Squeaks. That's why the tracks from your wheels from earlier in the day got covered up by the water by the time you left. The tide came in. After high tide, or when big waves hit the shore, like after a big storm, they can bring lots of cool objects to the surface with them. Those can be great times to look for things washed up on the beach, like Squeaks did on his trip. And sometimes waves can get really big too. Let me tell you about tsunamis, the biggest kinds of waves that ever happen. Tsunamis are really big waves caused by one-time events, like an earthquake or underwater volcano erupting. When the waves hit the shore, they can be 30 meters tall. That's as tall as 2 fire trucks stacked on their ends. Good question. Tsunamis don't happen just anywhere. Tsunamis are more common in some parts of the world than others, like the Ring of Fire in the Pacific Ocean. That's because there are lots of underwater volcanoes there. Tsunamis are very dangerous, just like other extreme weather, like tornadoes and hurricanes, and can cause whole towns to be evacuated. You should never be on a beach when a tsunami is coming. Oh yeah, Squeaks, waves are pretty amazing and powerful. Maybe we can even learn to surf and ride waves next time we go.
Hey Squeaks, you sure have been looking up a lot of pictures of sea monsters since we got back from the beach. Oh, our trip to the ocean inspired you? So you're doing research for a special art project? What is it? You're designing your own sea monster? That's such a great idea. You know, I bet you could get some inspiration from real animals too. Well, even though sea monsters aren't exactly real, there have been lots of really big, strong animals that have lived in the ocean. And even though they aren't alive anymore, we can learn what they looked like from their fossils. Fossils are anything that tells us about life in the ancient past. They can be bones, teeth, footprints, and all kinds of things. In fact, looking at fossils from ancient ocean creatures might be a great place to find inspiration for your sea monster design. How about you tell me what features you want your sea monster to have, and I'll help you look for real-life inspiration. Let's get started. Ah, you want your monster to be able to swim around the ocean. Well, that makes sense. Let's start off by checking out this fossil. Yes, this one has a super long neck. These fossils come from an animal called a plesiosaur. Plesiosaurs were really big reptiles that lived around the same time as dinosaurs, but plesiosaurs lived in oceans. This plesiosaur, called an elasmosaurus, had a neck that was over 6 meters long. That's longer than 2 cars put together. Plesiosaurs' long necks and sharp teeth helped them to catch fish to eat. They also had something to help them get around in the water. Yes, flippers! Instead of hands and feet like we have, the plesiosaurs had flippers, kind of like a seal. These made plesiosaurs pretty great swimmers. And plesiosaurs had another giant cousin in the ocean too. Take a look at this. It does kind of look like an alligator. This is an animal called Tylosaurus, which is a kind of mosasaur. Mosasaurs were also giant reptiles that lived in the ocean. They first evolved around 75 million years ago. They were huge like plesiosaurs, but they looked a bit different. What special features do you notice, Squeaks? Yes! Instead of a long neck like plesiosaurs, mosasaurs had powerful tails that helped them to swim, but they both had really big pointy teeth to help them catch their food. Mosasaurs ate all kinds of other animals, fish, birds, even other mosasaurs. So Squeaks, did any of those animals give you any ideas? Oh, your monster will have flippers and a long tail to help it swim quickly so it can catch its prey. Great! What's next? Oh, your monster needs to be tough, eh? Ooh, that reminds me of one of my favorite ancient sea monsters, the Dunkleosteus. Dunkleosteus is a giant fish from a group called placoderms. Can you see what special feature is my favorite about Dunkleosteus? Yes, its head is covered in bony plates that make it look a little like it's wearing a helmet that a knight in shining armor might wear. In fact, these animals are sometimes called armor-headed fish. Dunkleosteus were really big, almost as long as a school bus, and they needed a lot of food for their big bodies. Sometimes they would even try to eat other placoderms. Their giant, thick skulls worked like armor and might have helped keep them safe from other big predators. What do you think, Squeaks? Squeaks' monster will be covered with bony plates to keep it safe. What's next for your monster? Oh, your monster needs to look ferocious. Well, there is another ancient sea animal that we could get some ideas from. One that might be a little more familiar. Take a look. Ooh, you're right. It does look like a shark tooth. And sharks are still around today too, but they've been around for a really long time. Sharks first evolved way before the dinosaurs. And in the past, there were sharks much bigger than the ones we have around now. This tooth is from a megalodon, the biggest type of shark that ever lived. Compare it to the tooth from a great white shark. What do you notice, Squeaks? Yes, the megalodon tooth is much bigger. Megalodons were enormous. Megalodons could grow at least 45 feet long, or 15 meters. That's as long as a semi-truck. If you look really closely at the edges of the megalodon's tooth, you might notice one more feature that helped them eat their prey. Their teeth have serrated edges, which means they have little bumps along the sharp side, like a bread knife. These made megalodon teeth super sharp and good at slicing into their prey. Ooh, yeah! I think a set of big serrated teeth would be the perfect addition to your sea monster. It sounds like you have a lot of great ideas to make a really fearsome sea monster. It's got flippers like a plesiosaur, a strong tail like a mosasaur, bony armor like a Dunkleosteus, and serrated teeth like a megalodon. Let's see how it turned out. Now that is an amazing sea monster, Squeaks! Hey there! Squeaks was just showing off his imaginary sea monster that he drew based on some sea monsters of the past. I think it's great. I see that it has sharp teeth, big flippers, and an armored head, like the animals we learned about before. And I see you drew yourself swimming next to your monster. Your sea monster is huge! But even your imaginary sea monster doesn't look as big as the biggest animal that's ever actually lived. Do you know what animal that is, Squeaks? It's a kind of whale called the blue whale, and they're still around today. Blue whales can get to be over 30 meters long, about as long as 3 school buses in a row. And a blue whale's tongue can weigh as much as an elephant. And just its heart can be as heavy as a car. So, what do you think these great big blue whales eat? Fish. That's a great guess. And some whales, like beluga whales, do eat fish. They have sharp teeth that they use to catch and eat their prey. But some whales, like blue whales, don't have teeth at all. Weird, right? These whales have something called baleen instead of teeth. Baleen is a bristly plate that's stuck to the roof of the whale's mouth. It looks like a big bristly broom inside their mouths. Ooh, that's a great question. How does it help them eat? Well, if you've ever seen someone cook pasta, they might have dumped it out of the pot and into a strainer when the pasta was done cooking. Water pours out of the strainer, but the food stays inside. Baleen works kind of the same way. When a whale that has baleen takes a gulp of water and food, they use their tongues to push all the water out through the gaps, but keep the tasty food inside. But if they aren't eating fish, what are they eating? Blue whales eat tiny animals called krill. Krill are so small that we need a microscope to see them clearly. That's right, Squeaks. Something as big as a blue whale does need to eat a lot of krill. And they do. Adult blue whales can eat 16 tons of krill each day. That's as heavy as 4 elephants. Isn't it amazing that such a huge animal eats things that are so small that we can't even see them? Baby whales are called calves, just like baby cows. And also like cows, whale calves drink the milk that their mothers make inside their bodies until they're old enough to start eating krill. That's because all whales, including blue whales, are mammals. Mammals are animals like horses, cows, dogs, and humans, and all mammals feed their newborn babies milk. That's one of the special things that makes an animal a mammal. Yeah, they do look more like a fish than like the other mammals, but fish don't feed their babies with milk, which helps us know that whales and fish are different. And there's another important feature that tells us that whales are mammals and definitely not fish. Whales don't have gills to breathe in water like fish do. They have lungs just like us. So even though some whales can hold their breath for over an hour, they have to come up to the surface of the ocean to breathe every now and then. When we breathe, air goes through our nose or mouth and into our lungs. Whales breathe using their lungs too, but they do it in a very special way. They breathe in and out through a hole on the top of their head called a blowhole. When a whale is ready to take a breath, it comes up to the top of the water, opens its blowhole, and breathes out. This is called spouting. That air shoots up into the sky, sometimes about 12 meters high. That's about as tall as 6 grown-ups if they stood on each other's shoulders. Then, the whale breathes fresh air in through its blowhole and goes back underwater. When a whale is underwater, they can pinch their blowhole closed from the inside and seal it shut so no water gets in. But my favorite thing about blue whales are the amazing sounds they make. Blue whales, as well as lots of other whale species, can talk to each other from really far away. Sound travels really well in water, so one whale can hear another whale making noises even if they're thousands of miles apart. Whales make lots of sounds, including squeaks, whistles, and long, low, booming sounds that scientists call songs. Here's what a blue whale's song sounds like. I think whale songs sound beautiful too, Squeaks. Oh yeah, Squeaks says he still thinks his imaginary sea monster is pretty cool, but it's even cooler that there are giant blue whales out in the ocean right now, singing to each other, eating microscopic krill, and taking care of their babies. Thanks for joining us here at the fort. I hope you loved learning about our ocean mammal friends too. What was your favorite thing you got to discover? If you want to keep learning and having fun with Squeaks, me, and all of our other friends, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on SciShow Kids.